There are 5 things you should be practicing every single day to make sure that you are getting the most out of the time that you're spending on the piano. Your piano teacher Tim here, and let's get on with the lesson. First thing you should be practicing on the piano is sight reading. Sight reading is by far the most useful skill you can practice on the piano because, as the name implies, it involves reading something from sight. So there's what it is. Now, how it'll help you, well, as you get better and better at sight reading, the faster you will be able to pick up new pieces of music, because you'll see certain patterns that you'll see over and over again, just used in kind of different orders. So learning how to sight read and then practicing it every day is super essential. It's like if you're learning a language, right? Well, if you just read the same passage in French over and over again, you'll get really good at reading that passage, but you really want to be practicing reading different passages, with different sentences, things like that. It applies to music the exact same way. So make sure that you are reading something new on a regular basis. Now let's get on to how you should be practicing sight reading. Well, the whole idea of sight reading, really the principles behind it, is to pick a piece or a passage within a piece that is a little bit underneath your current playing level. So whatever you're learning as a piece that you would practice every day, look for something that's just a little bit easier than that, because the whole goal is to be able to go from the beginning of that piece to the end of that piece or passage, however long it may be, with as few mistakes as you can. So how to practice? Well, there are a ton of sight reading books online. Let me show you a couple I like. Okay, looking on Amazon here, I am a huge fan of this Paul Harris selection here of Improve Your Sight Reading, Piano Level 1. There's actually levels 1 to level 8, I believe. This is perfect. Like, level 1's obviously if you've never sight read in your life before. And like a lot of books on Amazon, there is the preview thing where you can kind of take a look what they're going to be covering the first few pages, just to kind of see if this is too easy for you. But like I said, there are many levels to choose from. Let's take a look on the sidebar here. Take a look at level 7. So obviously by level 7 you'll be pretty far along. But I highly recommend this series. It really takes things in order from like the very, very beginner, and then by the time you finish all 8 of these books, you will be pretty proficient at sight reading. Unfortunately, they don't give you a whole lot to go here with the preview, but as you can see, some of the rhythms you will be reading are quite a bit more complicated than what you saw in level 1. So I highly recommend you check out this Paul Harris series on Amazon. Real quick, I want to mention if you have a church hymnal lying around, those are good sight reading examples as well. However, those are on the little bit more of an advanced side, so you don't want to start out with that. But if you've been sight reading for a while, grab one of your church hymnals if you have one and just read through the hymns throughout. The next thing you should be practicing is actually a few things wrapped in one. They are scales, arpeggios, key signatures, and the like. So let me kind of define these for you. So I'm going to first define what a key is. So a key is basically the selection of notes you're going to find throughout a piece. So if a piece is in, say, the key of C, well, the very definition of the key of C, we're not going over that so much in this lesson, but the definition of the key of C major is that it has 0 sharps and 0 flats. So if you have a piece in the key of C major and you're used to playing in that key, well, you're mostly going to be working with all those white keys because there's no sharps or flats. Can there be sharps or flats throughout? Yeah, maybe peppered out through here or there, but 99.9% of the time, you're mostly, if you're in that key, you're going to be using notes within whatever key you're working with. A scale, as I just played, is when you put all the notes in the key, which are all these ones that you're using, in order from the key that you're in, also called the tonic, the first starting note, and then you play up the keyboard with all the scale notes in between up to your starting note again, or your ending note. So that is what we call a scale. So if I'm in the key of C major, the C major scale will be just this. Now, the great thing and how this applies to actually playing music is that when you have a piece in the key of C, you can visualize that this is what you're working with. So maybe you're like, okay, well, that's pretty obvious, right? With the key of C, there's no sharps, no flats, and so forth. Well, what if you're in a different key? What if you're in the key of G? Well, if you've learned your G major scale, you know that there's an F sharp, but not only do you know that there's an F sharp, as you play the scale, you'll get a good feeling that where that F sharp is in the key, that it's on that next to last note, and that's going to be throughout the entire piece. So knowing your keys, knowing your scales is really important. Now, what in the world is an arpeggio? Well, an arpeggio is, so you have a normal 3-note triad chords, also called block chords when you play them all at once. And then you have an arpeggio, which is simply playing the notes separately. Now, what is the deal with this? Why should you learn these? Well, not only do they get to be fun to play, you are going to see these in your music quite often. I'm not even kidding. Let me just kind of show you an example. So here we have the Moonlight Sonata, and we have these groupings of 3 notes at the top with your right hand, and that's pretty much mostly what your right hand does in the piece. A little bit more to it than that. So you're playing those 3 notes over and over and over again. And hey, if I play all those notes at once, that sounds like a chord, right? Well, it is. So there's your triad, your 3-note chord, and you're playing these arpeggios here. So here's an example of a piece that's made almost entirely of arpeggios, or at least has arpeggios in pretty much every measure. So, as you can imagine, learning these will kind of help you because it'll give your brain more information to go by. For instance, when I play this spot right here on the second line, second measure over, because I know my arpeggios and the theory behind it, I know that this is a C sharp minor chord in an inversion, so it helps me out a lot more rather than just saying like, okay, this is an E, this is a G sharp, this is a C sharp, and then figure out the notes down there. I can just look at that as a C sharp chord and be able to play it much, much faster. Now, it takes time to be able to not only learn the theory behind it, but start applying it and then actually seeing it and analyze it in your music. It takes a long time to get there, but don't give up on it. It truly is worth it in the long run. How to practice scales and arpeggios. Well, there's a scales and arpeggios book that you can find on Amazon. I'll show that to you in just a second. But basically, when you go through this book, you want to start with the scale and chords and everything that have the least amount of sharps or flats, which is, as I mentioned before, the key of C, because the key of C has 0 sharps, 0 flats. Then after that, you want to learn the key with 1 sharp. And then after that, you want to learn the key with 2 sharps. See how you're going in order here, and then you can imagine the next key you would learn is A with 3 sharps, and then the key with 4 sharps, until you get up to 7 sharps, which is the maximum amount of sharps you can have, because there are only 7 unique notes in a scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now you may be saying, well, there's 8 notes. Yep, but it's the same as the first note, so 7 individual notes. And then after you learn all the sharps, you want to go through, and then you want to, maybe start at C, 0 sharp, 0 flats, and then learn the key with 1 flat, 2 flats, 3, and then so forth until you get to what number? As you can imagine, 7. Okay, taking a look at what these books look like, I would go for this one right here, the complete book of scales, chords, arpeggios, and cadences. This one is well worth it. You can find these online. However, I just find the way they're written out in this book works the best for me. It's just very easy to visualize. The next thing you should be practicing every day is your rhythm. And what is rhythm? Well, rhythm is basically the timing of the notes. So I can play für Elise, right, like normal. Has a certain rhythm to it, or I can just change up the rhythm. I'm playing the same notes just in a different timing. So I'm changing up the rhythm. Same notes, just in a different pace and different pattern of how you play them. So obviously, like if I'm playing on the keyboard, the note I'm hitting is E. And then I'm hitting them for 1, 2, 3, 4. It's my rhythm. And if I started playing them twice as fast, I've changed up the rhythm. Now, why should you practice rhythm and how's it going to help you? Well, it should be obvious. Well, you're going to be seeing rhythms all the time in your pieces. Knowing notes is only less than half of the equation, because then you got rhythms and then you got dynamics and other things like that. So learning to master rhythms is really important. Some ways you can practice your rhythms is to just pick out a piece of music you have, maybe like this Moonlight Sonata here, taking out your sheet music and then maybe just clapping the different rhythms. So in the right hand, you have this triplet pattern, bump, 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 bump. Maybe start out simple like that, and then try to start maybe counting some more complex rhythms as you see them. Okay, another great way to practice your rhythm is by going to practicesight-reading.com, and there is a rhythm practice section right here. And basically what it does is it automatically generates an example for you to clap along with, and then once you kind of think you have it down, you can actually press play and it will play it along. It doesn't look like, oh, I have it muted, so never mind. Anyway, you'd play it and then you can basically check your answer that way. You just click this bad boy and it gives you a new example to play from. And you should be practicing, maybe just clap through like a few sections of music a day, maybe 3 or 4 lines of music should do it, so long as you're doing it consistently every day. The next thing you should be practicing every day is the pieces, right? So what point is it learning all this stuff if you actually don't put it into practice? Well, what you should be doing now is learning pieces. I always recommend that students work on at least 2 pieces at a time. One piece that is on the easier side, and then another piece that is more on the challenging side. So one's kind of for fun and easier, and then one will actually challenge you, get you to learn a new skill, apply a new skill, something like that. You also want to be making sure you learn pieces in different genre, different styles. So maybe like a classical piece and then a jazz piece, something like that, something with different rhythms, different key signatures. You want to be changing it up, especially as you get to be more advanced. Now, when you're in the beginning stages, you probably want to be sticking to learning, nursery rhymes, real simple stuff like that. But as you branch out, really give every genre of music a chance, because learning the different styles and everything will just make you a more well-rounded musician. Like if you come across a style of music that maybe you need to play for a group or something, you'll be more apt to do it. And then also, you will also learn more about yourself, because you'll discover that there are styles of music that you like that you weren't even aware of before. So how to practice pieces? Well, you can actually go out on your own and hunt down, piano pieces online, or easy piano pieces, things like that. See if you can snag some for free. Shouldn't be too hard to find with a quick Google search. Or you can get a piano lesson book online, or my courses over on my website. But let me show you really quick about the piano lesson books. Okay, this is a piano lesson book. I highly recommend this series here by Alfred Publishing Company. So this is number 2 in the series. There's a pink book, there's this one, number 2, and then a bluish book. Oh hey, the pink and blue book are up there right beside me. So just taking a look through here, the great thing about these is they'll introduce you, like number 1 introduces you from the very beginning. But the cool thing about these is that they'll introduce you, like the beginning will be pretty easy, at least for whatever playing level you're at. And then always by the end of the book, things always get really, really interesting. And they give you tons of sheet music to play, as you can see here, which is great. Every page has new sheet music on it pretty much. And they also have like lesson pages where they'll teach you about, sorry, I know this is the best way to film, but they'll teach you about something, and then on the next page they will give you a piece to practice it. Really cool. You know what else does that? The courses over on my website, pianolessonsontheweb.com. specifically check out the piano level courses. So there's piano introduction to piano music, and then piano levels 1 through 5. So check that out as well if you want. But I always recommend picking up, even if you have my courses, pick up one of these bad boys. It'll just give you some really interesting different music to play. The next thing you should be practicing every day, or at least learning every day, is music theory. What in the world is music theory? Well, music theory is the study, or basically how to explain how music works and the inner workings behind it. Now, why learn music theory? Well, like I mentioned earlier in the lesson, the more information you can give your brain to work on when learning pieces, the better off you're going to be. So instead of looking at notes as individual notes, okay, here's an E, here's a G, here's a C, you can look at them and say, okay, that is a chord, because I know my chords so well, I can play them in all their permutations like that. So you get very, very apt at glancing at a sheet of music and then picking a lot more out of it. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so looking at this Chopin prelude, zooming in there. So I could look through this and look at the individual notes and then, you know, maybe have it take forever or an eternity to play. Or what I can do is, because I know I'm looking here, okay, the key signatures, E minor. In this case, you have the dominant notes here. You have some E minor chords in an inversion here. Now I know it seems like it makes it more complex, but once you get good at this, you can actually start to pick out things in real time, like this is a D minor chord in first inversion, and then it moves down here to an E7 chord. And then I'm looking also at how each chord moves between one another, also known as intervals, looking at that relationship there. So learn your music theory, specifically learn about, it was actually one of the numbers we had today. Make sure you're learning about keys, scales, key signatures, chords, chord inversions, chord progressions, and much more, but at least learn those 5 or 6 things. If you want to get a really firm grasp on everything we talked about today, make sure you check out this playlist of lessons right here that I made for you. And yeah, so check it out. That should keep you busy for a while, get you learning more and more about piano. It's been your piano teacher, Tim, here. Thanks for coming by today, and I'll see you in the next lesson.